legislative preview. We'll wait just a second and get the rest hopping on. All right. Hi, I am Susie Lusk with the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce. Welcome. Hope you are all staying safe and warm today. We wanted to present this legislative preview this week. Bradley Jackson, our government relations staff, have some good information. And we also have a panel of local chamber executives, and we'll have some questions for them after Bradley's presentation. We also, thankfully, have a sponsor for this, and with our friends at Chamber Master. A lot of us use Chamber Master in our business, and we wanted to, and a lot of us know our representative there, which is Scott Robertson. A link was sent yesterday for Starbucks coffee from our sponsor in Chamber Master, but we want to give it to Scott right now to let him give us some information on that.
Yes, thank you for letting us be part of this with you today. As Susie mentioned there, an email was sent out with a survey. If you complete that for us, it's just a real quick, maybe 5-minute survey. We're going to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card just for taking that. That just helps us, some of the different areas that we might be able to assist you with. But one of the things that I wanted to speak with about you today is the newest version of our software, which is the Growth Zone Edition. So a lot of our chambers right now are on the Chamber Master platform. So we do have the newest version of our software that has a lot more modules built into it. So I just wanted to kind of talk with you about that today. We have an email designer in it now, so it's like our own version of Constant Contact. So you can do email design and design newsletters right inside our software. Has the ability to do drip email campaigns, so that's one of the new features. One of the other things that we've launched too last year was an integration with Zoom and GoToWebinar. So if you're using our software right now, that is available on both versions of the software. So if you're on Growth Zone or Chamber Master, and you haven't heard about the integration with Zoom or GoToWebinar, mark on that survey that you have an interest. Our website program that's been very popular. We've been helping a lot of associations get a brand new website. We've started a new monthly subscription service on the website as well. So no upfront costs. You get a brand new website, and then you pay for it on a monthly basis the same way as the software. So if that is something that's of interest to you, just mark that on the survey for us as well. The last thing I wanted to say is our referral program. So if you know of another association, any association, real estate, attorneys, insurance, whatever it might be, we do a $250 referral. So on that survey at the bottom is just a place for you to mark down any association that you think that we might be a good fit for. We'll reach out to them, and if they do sign up for our software, we'll send you a $250 gift card for that referral, and that's unlimited. So if you have different realtor associations, bar associations that you want to refer us to, other chambers, just mark those down there, and we'll certainly reach out. But again, I'm Scott Robertson with Growth Zone Chamber Master. If there's anything ever I can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm here to assist any way I can. Thanks again, Susie.
Thanks so much, Scott. So good to see you again. Like we said, the chamber uses, Tennessee Chamber uses Chamber Master, and we appreciate your sponsorship. Like I mentioned, we have a panel of local chambers that we will hear from after we hear from Bradley, with Laura Barnett with Kingsport, Justin Grainert with Chattanooga, Kel McDowell with Williamson Inc., and Lindsay Frilling with the Obion County. I will send it over to Bradley.
All right. Thanks, Susie. And on behalf of the Tennessee Chamber, thank you all for your great partnership with TCCE and TEDC. I know this is a year unlike any other, really. We've all gone through a lot. This is, and thank you for joining us today, Zoom. I know a lot of us, there's not probably a whole lot else to do, especially in the middle and kind of West Tennessee areas. But we thank you all for your partnership. The legislature is getting started, and we always ask for your help whenever we work bills. So I wanted to provide a few updates. And Carolyn, I think you're gonna share your screen. What was that email I saw? I'm just kidding.
Can y'all see that? Is it full screen for you?
It's full screen. Looks good.
Perfect.
That's good. All right. Another thing we did want to talk to you all about is we are thinking about on April the 6th. Actually, Susie has it. Usually this time of year we'd be doing our big annual event with TEDC and TCCE. But we pushed it back to April the 6th, and Susie will be sending out an email, but we're looking at doing a smaller in-person number So it's probably going to be around 100 total. Susie, we can only have about 25% of what our total number is, but stay tuned for that. We do want to try to have something, with you all this year, especially to visit with the legislature, talk about important issues, because there's a lot of things that's going on this year. So Carolyn, let's go to the next slide. So wanted to talk to you all. Of course, you all know about the Tennessee Chamber. We engage in a number of different areas, from economic development, tax policy, really anything. We try to cover, we look at over 1,500 bills. Every bill that gets filed, we look at, see if it impacts business and industry. If it does, we weigh in. We either try to, support, outright oppose things, or modify it to make sure that we keep a great business environment. So we cover a lot of different areas. We try to really be a resource for you all, local chambers. If you ever have issues that come up, or companies that have questions, you can let us know, because that's what we do. We are very engaged down in the legislature, know all them, and work with them on a variety of different things. We also partner with the U.S. Chamber, with NAM, the National Association of Manufacturers, and ACCE, or ACC, which is the American Chemistry Council. So we have a lot of resources, a lot of partnerships to draw from. Next, Carolyn. All right, so just I know we always talk about, I know you all that are out there on the front lines, working to get businesses recruited and talking about what a great state we are. Just to rehash some of the advantages that Tennessee has, we are, a right to work state. I know for you all who recruit industry, it's really one of the first things that you're asked. You look at our location. Tennessee has a great location. We're in pretty close proximity to almost anywhere in the United States, especially if you're going up east or out west. Or if you're even traveling from north to south, you're pretty much going to have to go through Tennessee. Tennessee has great roads, great road system that we pay for. We don't float bonds with it. We have water around the state, and we have a lot of power. I know I've been hearing about our great partnerships at TVA and their work to recruit industry. I've been seeing where some other states are having to deal with rolling blackouts, and I don't think anywhere in Tennessee, the TVA service area, are we having to deal with that. So that's a really good thing. We do not have a personal income tax here. The hall income taxes will be completely and totally phased out here this year, actually. The General Assembly overall, they're business friendly. Most of them, no matter where they are in the state, they have engaged with business. They've been involved in business. They may have started a business. So we always have a good relationship with them. Tennessee only has 3 statewide elected offices, which is really good for us. It's the governor and the 2 United States senator seat. Some states deal with like 14 to even 20 statewide elected offices. In addition, we don't have statewide judicial elections. The Supreme Court here is appointed, which is really good, by the governor, which is really good for us, so we don't have to deal with those kinds of elections. Regulations are always reasonable. We economic development and recruitment efforts are coordinated, and they are strong. When you look at our state ECD, our local partners, TVA, I think we work better together than probably most any other state in the nation, and getting businesses answers for when they are looking to come here. We've had really strong revenue growth, which, unlike a lot of other states, they're running massive shortfalls. Tennessee, when you just look at over about the past 7 to 8 years, we have grown almost 2.5 billion over what the state estimated we would grow, which is a really big deal. In addition to that, that's allowed this legislature to make about another $1 billion in cuts in the past years. In addition, make some good investments, because that's one thing we, as business folks, look at is to have a great state, you're going to have to make investments in certain areas too, whether it's your infrastructure, your education system, and Tennessee's certainly done that. We also have the Tennessee Promise, so we are making strides on our workforce to improve our workforce, because I know you're all hearing about that too, and we'll touch on that here in a little bit. All right, Carolyn. So just to talk about a little bit the state Senate, not a whole lot has changed. The same power structure there that's been there for a while remains. You've got Lieutenant Governor McNally, Speaker Pro Tem Farrell Hale, and others there. The Democrat leadership has not changed either. It's exactly the same as it was. And let's go to the next one, Carolyn. In the House, a little bit of change, not much. Still, Speaker Cameron Sexton from Crossville. We do have a new Speaker Pro Tem, Pat Marsh, from down in Shelbyville, who's a great supporter of business. William Lambert retains the majority leader post. And Jeremy Faison also remains our Republican caucus chair as well. On the Democrat side, Vincent Dixie did take over as the Democrat caucus chair. So thanks, Carolyn. Next one. The new membership, I think you all know, and or you all have even played a role in us getting introduced to them. There really wasn't a lot of turnover this year, even in Northeast Tennessee. That's probably you all had the most turnover, Laura. With but Scotty Campbell, he's coming back. He'd been there, so overall, it's a really solid house membership. That's coming in. We've met with them. We had actually an orientation session with them the other day that Ryan and Lauren and our government affairs team put together, and it was really helpful. So I'm very optimistic about this class of freshman legislators. They have a good business acumen, and we're going to be able to work with them on a lot of different things. And next one, and this is just, we always talk about, you all get questions and we do too. And by the way, Ryan created all these slides. These are really, really good slides. But you look at where Tennessee kind of competed when you look at where Tennesseans voted for president of the United States Senate. Tennessee does have one of the monikers where we probably are one of the heavier red states in the nation. And this kind of proves that. You can see the states that are darker had even higher Republican turnout. And we've really, the last election cycle, we saw some counties getting up to 88% in favor of Trump. The first time President Trump ran, it was certainly not. I think the highest county was around 71% or something like that. So it really went up. Biden did carry the urban areas and then one rural county out there. So that's kind of how Tennessee lines up. As always, we expect this to shift as Tennessee grows in areas and everything. But for right now, that's kind of whenever people ask, well, how does Tennessee fare? This is where Tennessee really did. You do know some of the suburban counties this time around are not as deep a shade of red as they were prior, which shows that some of the suburban areas this time did trend heavier toward President Biden in Tennessee, just like across the nation as well. All right, Carolyn. All right, well, let's start to transition, talk about Tennessee's economy and Governor Bill Lee and his state budget and really how it impacts you all in economic development. So first of all, Tennessee's economy. We hear a lot of discussion. We watch a lot of other states, and Governor Bill Lee noted in his State of the State that Tennessee was one of only 7 states in the entire nation that had actually seen growth. When you go back from March the 5th until currently, states that have seen growth, Tennessee is one of only 7 states that have seen growth. So year to date, we're right at 1.1 billion over the estimate that where we should be. Now, granted, the legislature lowered the estimate whenever the pandemic hit and thought, this could be really bad. We could lose a lot of revenue. But we have really overperformed this estimate. So we're only 6 months into the current fiscal year, the 2021 fiscal year. So we've still got 6 more months to go, and we're already 1.1 billion over. And I will tell you, the legislature overall, what they are doing with these funds is they're not creating any sort of major programs or anything like that. They are taking it as non-recurring one-time revenue, and they're putting a lot of it into building maintenance and infrastructure. And we'll look at that here in just a little bit. When you think about sales and use, that's where a lot of our growth has come from. In addition to F&E, there are some areas that you all see this in your communities. They're just killing it. Building materials is up 25% year over year. Miscellaneous retail stores, which this includes online internet sales, is up 24%. Food stores 7%. Furniture, home furnishings. So you'll see the growth overall. Then there are some things that are way down. Most of all are eating and drinking places, establishments. Tourism related expenditures. They're still down in your communities. Overall, they're down from where they are, even though things are pretty much back to normal. It's still going to take them a while to recover. But overall, when you look at sales and use, you'll see on there we still have good solid growth compared to a lot of other states that have actually lost quite a bit more. Now, when you look at unemployment, Tennessee has fared well. We jumped up to about 13% unemployment go back to about March the 15th. And so that makes a total of 1.1 million claims since the pandemic in Tennessee. They've paid out on 1.1 million claims. During those times, it got up really high, where some weeks they had as many as 325,000 filings. Now we're down to about 50,000 weekly filings on unemployment, which is positive. It's certainly gotten better, much better. So our current unemployment rate right now is hovering right around 4%, which is really good. So Tennessee overall has recovered well. We hope that you all kind of see it in some of your communities. I know it's likely uneven kind of recovery and growth. But I know the legislature and the governor is really committed to trying to make sure that all areas of Tennessee have an opportunity to get back on track and grow. All right, next slide. All right, let's talk about Governor Lee's budget. Overall, it's a $41.8 billion spending plan. About half of that comes from state revenue. About 45% comes from the federal revenue. Sorry, I'm having to move over my. Like I said, when you look at where there's a lot of growth in this budget, that he's recognizing about $423 million in growth. That's their estimate. And what they're saying is as well as we are going ahead and putting into this budget, the additional spending of recurring of $812 million total. So I'll show you where all these where the $812 million is getting spent, but most importantly is the non-recurring funding of this budget. It's about $1.6 billion that they're not recognizing as conservative budgeting purposes as recurring growth. So it gives them a lot of flexibility to fund one-time programs, and that's where most of the economic development programs got funded this year. The rainy day fund is doing extremely well. I know when we look back just 10 years ago, it was about 356 million. Now it's right at 1.5 billion. It's one of the strongest in the entire nation. Their goal is to have it at 10% of total state revenue. So they're getting really close to that. They probably will be able to exceed that in the next few years. So of that one-time money, they're dumping in 931 capital maintenance dollars, and that's going to benefit state government primarily and higher education. So if you're a chamber and you've got higher education institutions in your community, there's a significant list of improvements that they're gonna make there in for higher education. All right, Carolyn, we'll go. All right, so let's talk about economic development, where the investments are going in economic development. Overall, Tennessee ECD is getting $316 million, and this is non-recurring dollars. Fast Track is getting 95 million of that, which is very consistent with what the Lee administration has done and ECD has done every year, around that 80 to 95 million dollar Fast Track number. In addition, they are taking $200, and I know this is a big issue for the Tennessee Chamber and what we hear from you all. $200 is going into broadband in your communities, and it looks like what they're going to do is they're going to take the existing grant program and utilize that to get that $200 million to build out additional broadband in your community. They also are taking $21 million to fund rural economic development. I believe it's opportunity grants. These grants were around last year. I think a number of you all have applied for those, but we encourage you all to talk to ECD about those. These are really good grant programs for you all. They help to develop it, maybe your Main Street project, just a lot of different things in your community. In addition, they are $8 million total in tourism that the administration is putting forward. About $5 million of that is recurring, and this is really promotion to get tourists to Tennessee, to promote Tennessee and some of the things we've got here. So it's a little bit more because of the pandemic. They're wanting to ramp up their tourism and advertising efforts for the state. In addition, transportation, and this may affect a lot of you all. I know, Kingsport a few years ago, Miles worked to get some of these aeronautics ECD funds. And the legislature, it's been a few years since they've put any money toward these, but these are really for airport expansion projects or economic development around your airport or aeronautic projects. So it's a good opportunity, and they're putting $10 million for that. There'll be an application process. In addition, the air and rail equity funds are getting a total of about $120 million, and ag enhancement's getting $5.5 million. So when you look at all the improvements that the Lee administration did, economic development gets the most dollars. It's over about $430 million, but most of it is non-recurring dollars. So we'll go to the next slide. Where did the state increases go? And these are more likely recurring. Education always gets the lion's share of state growth. But fully funds the BEP and adds substantial increases to teacher salaries, really. So that takes up $341 million. Higher education is getting a big share of it at 157, and that does not include the infrastructure dollars that they're receiving. Health, social services, you see the growth there. Corrections, it's a big year for corrections. They're putting a lot more money in corrections than they have in the past. And then you'll see public safety, judicial, and then business and rural development really does get the largest increase overall of state dollar improvement. So sorry. So Tennessee, we always talk about, to be fair to ourselves, we need to know where we need to improve as well. We know what we're good at, but we also know where we need to improve. One of those is our overall educational attainment of our citizens. Tennessee's making really good strides with the Tennessee Promise program, but we always still have work to do. Workforce participation, it's actually improved. It used to, Tennessee had one of really the worst numbers in the nation in the low 50s. The governor noted during the State of the State that that's actually ticked up a little bit. So, Virginia has a high workforce participation rate around the mid 60s. And that gives them almost 150,000 additional people that can come out of their workforce. So that's very important that we increase our workforce participation rate. Healthcare and technology out in rural systems. This is a challenge for Tennessee. If you're in a rural area or an area that you want to see grow, you really do need a good, strong healthcare system out there. So it's important to always communicate that and talk to the governor about that, about ways that they can boost that. Tennessee's a border state. A lot of traffic comes through here, but also means a lot of people can go across the state to purchase certain things, which can happen here. We have a really high sales and use tax we've talked about, and overall businesses, we're paying that local property tax, which includes real and tangible. We have a state income tax here on corporate profits. That we'll talk about too. Then again, we're starting to hear too a lot about federal policy, about a lot of our companies that are kind of worrying about what to expect in terms of federal policy, outright changes or things that they're just not certain about. And businesses, they like certainty. They like to know what to expect. And let's go to the next one, Carolyn. So we talk about Tennessee. We talk about this all the time. Tennessee's a really cheap state for us to live in, me and you. But when we talk about our businesses, it's not so much. So Tennessee, we really rank almost the lowest in the entire nation on our total tax burden. And this is for individuals, of course. Mostly it gets to our sales and use tax that we have to pay, and really our local property taxes as well. Let's go to the next slide. But when we start thinking through businesses, because businesses really do look at, I know Tennessee's a great state. It's a beautiful state. People are so friendly. You don't have an income tax. But when their CFO comes in and starts really looking at the numbers, there are things that we want to make sure Tennessee always stays comparative with. And the one that we're kind of highlighting, our overall rank is really solid, but on that corporate income tax, you can see there's quite a few states that rank in the Southeast a lot better than Tennessee does. And of course, our sales tax number, we rank pretty low there. And I think that ranking shows that we have a really high rate. And always remember, businesses end up paying quite a bit of that just with their business to business sales and everything else. And then next slide, Carolyn. And then Tennessee, when we look at our corporate F&E tax, I think I've showed you all this. This is really something I don't like to talk about, but it is something that we know in the legislature they really need to keep an eye on. We have the third highest per capita that Tennessee collects overall in their F&E tax. So it means they're really capturing a lot more economic activity than other states. But this is a lot of the reason why Tennessee has seen such great economic growth. Businesses, the great work that you all been doing and generating new companies and existing ones to expand, it's been generating our economy quite a bit. But also we want to make sure that this F&E tax base does not get too much higher. So next one, Carolyn. This is something else Ryan sharing from Ryan. Overall, a lot of activity in the legislature, but last year it slowed down considerably because of the pandemic. They slowed down the number of bills they have. We expect this year that they're going to slow down a little bit as well too, which is always a good thing for us. Because there's honestly probably not a whole lot of things. Now, in terms of economic development policy, things that immediately impact you all in either running a local chamber or working on economic development, there have not been a whole lot of bills filed on those issues this year, which is really good, because I know in the past we've really had to fight and get aggressive on a number of different fronts. There may be a few that are out there that we're looking at, but in the House we have a very different committee structure, and these committees are good for business. So likely, if there are any proposals, they're going to go to the House Commerce Committee and the Senate. And the Senate Commerce Committee as well. So we'll keep our eye peeled on anything that comes out. I know Ryan and Lauren were all looking at all the bill filings, and Mallory, and we'll have some information to you all. Let's go to the next one. Yeah, out of all these bills, where are they all getting filed? Well, likely relations or operations of state government, which, it does impact businesses. This impacts you all because they're getting to make changes in the way things that currently are. The administration does have quite a few bills this year. The next highest section is always around education. Education's always active in terms of the bills that get filed. Okay, go ahead, Carolyn, it's okay. All right, Tennessee pandemic response. We did want to talk to you all a little bit about this, because when we want to provide explanation for when we say we think Tennessee did a really good job, or we did better than other states, why do we say that, and why do we think that? Well, on March 5th, you all know everything drastically changed. We were told to stay home, don't come out. We don't know what to do. So all of our businesses were saying, well, what do we do? Can I open? Do I have to stay closed? And then Governor Lee kind of said, look, if you are one of these types of businesses that the Homeland Security defines as essential, then you can remain open. And I know the chamber worked on that, and that was really important for a lot of our companies. In addition, there was a lot of confusion. Like, if you are going to stay open, what am I going to have to do to stay open? Who do I follow? What's the guidances that I need to look at? So you all, in helping to promote and to steer business and give them guidance on this is what you need to do to be compliant, was very important, I think, for all local chambers. And we all need to play a role in continuing to do that, because there's still a lot of questions. Tennessee got $5 billion in the initial CARES Act. About 2.3 of that, the Governor Lee had a lot of flexibility with. He could take that and use on different programs. The other part of it really did have to go to healthcare and education. Out of that 2.3, he has taken about, in addition to the legislature, they've taken about 1 billion of that, and they have put it in our unemployment fund, because that unemployment fund is drawn down so fast, it's paying out so many people, that it can easily get to a situation of triggering additional tax hikes on employers. That has not happened. And I think Tennessee is really one of the only states that has taken that much money and put in to shore up our unemployment trust fund. Well, this has been good for Tennessee. It's been good for local areas, especially rural areas where folks have been laid off. Those enhanced unemployment checks have worked to pump quite a bit of money into Tennessee's economy, which we think is one reason why we are collecting so much additional tax revenue this year. And it also keeps the UI taxes low on employers. So if you're a small employer and you're trying to, just hang on, the last thing you need right now is really an unemployment tax increase. So as you talk to the administration, we think this is a really good thing that they've done. In addition, they have dropped a lot of money on direct grants to small businesses. The Surge program, where if you were a business, they said, look, if you lost this much revenue, then we're going to pay you this much, and you don't have to really do much of anything. It was a grant. So they've done that. So they've put additional money in broadband. So basically, they put $2.3 billion into the economy, and they've really had a strong business focus on it. We're very appreciative of that. Up until recently, Tennessee still had COVID cases that were higher per 100,000 than a lot of other states. Now, this is not the case recently. Those numbers have really, Tennessee's numbers, along with everybody else, has really improved. We're seeing the numbers really stabilize, and hospital capacity has dropped quite a bit. We're not for sure why that is, but I think the vaccine, almost 1 million Tennesseans have so far taken the vaccine, which is really good. In Tennessee, you get questions from your businesses. When, I'm an essential business, why can they not move me up on the vaccine? And Governor Lee and his team have been adamant that they want to stick to the age band. So the older you are, the quicker you're going to get your vaccine. We really don't see that changing. Want to make sure the economy remains open, and then there's other results that are happening across the state that all of us will need to be cognizant of. Next one, Carolyn. And just when we talk about some of the things the chamber is going to work on in terms of our 2021 business agenda. You know, one of these, right to work, is very important to us. There's an opportunity to put this into Tennessee's Constitution. This will give Tennessee a huge advantage because we do think there's legislation coming at the federal level that could possibly prohibit or preempt states from having right to work statutes. We've had it since 1947. It's really important for us here. We're always going to watch our taxes. We always need to kind of peek around our shoulder, make sure there's certain things that are not creeping up. Because Tennessee does rely on a lot of taxes from our business sector, and to keep taxes low on us, and that's it's been a main reason of Tennessee's growth. Economic development and recovery is the main thing we're looking at. Watching, infrastructure, broadband needs to be invested in, additional dollars, going into our economy. You all and the ability to stay competitive as we are competing against jobs in other states. Human resource policy. We always watch workers' comp, unemployment. So there's everything that we watch. Education has become a major focus of the Tennessee Chamber when we poll our businesses and our members. So we're going to stay ahead of the curve on developing policy that we need to make sure Tennessee is a great state for business and economic development. So let's see the next one. All right. Well, I guess that's all I've got. And we'll be glad to take any questions that you've got, and stay tuned to your emails. The chamber, Ryan and Lauren, our government affairs team, they do a great job of our capital update on Thursdays. Feel free to take those and blast them out. You can even put your name on them. We don't mind, and then we will alert you if there's anything that comes up. You all are always really good to engage with your legislators. This summer, when things get back to normal, we want to visit with you all, hold legislative events if we can, give plant tours. We've missed out on quite a bit of that with our legislature. So please stay tuned, and overall we greatly appreciate you all's partnership, and we'll do anything to help you all. Just let us know if you ever need anything. So I guess, Susie, am I going to turn it over, or do you want me to kick off the next one?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get those 4 panel members pinned, and we'll start those questions. Bradley, if you'll start the first one. While we get ready for those 4, Bradley mentioned April 6th. That's the date of our annual meeting. We will have the same space as we had last year at the Doubletree Hotel, where we had 520 in there. They'll let us have 120 this year, again with the same space. So we'll be spread out, and we'll get some more information out on that. But it is April 6th. We're just going to try and see what the numbers are, and we're going to do this hybrid. Of course, there's that virtual option, but that's the date, April 6th. We'll start with lunch, but I will send it to Bradley to ask the first question for.
Okay. All right, thanks, Susie. So we thought this would be a good opportunity, and actually I'm interested in hearing this panel about how local, we tell you all a lot about how we engage in the state legislature, but it's very interesting how locals engage both with their local elected officials and even their state elected officials. So that's the purpose of this panel today, is to get some perspective from East, Middle, and West Tennessee from chambers on how they engage really with their folks and the issues they have to work on. So the first question, I think we're going to start up in East Tennessee with Laura. Laura, and we'll maybe go next to Lindsay, or move around. But tell us kind of how you've formed really and build relationships with your local officials. Now, what things do you do to make sure there's that you do have a relationship with them?
So I will say that, we have a longstanding tradition or longstanding program here at our chamber. And so I was fortunate enough to kind of come into that. I've been at this chamber for almost 3 years. And so we have a great relationship with our local officials. One of the first things that I wanted to do when I came on this job was to set up times to meet with each one of them. So I set up times to meet with our mayors, with our city officials, with our BMA members, with our county commissioners. I would attend what we call our Board of Mayor and Aldermen, which is our city council, and our county commissioners, just so they can get a face with the name, just so we can start working on those relationships together. We at the chamber have a great relationship with our city officials and our county officials, but we're kind of an extension sometimes for our city officials. our city manager will call and he'll want to set up some sort of meetings with our state legislators or whatever that is. And we'll work on that. We'll arrange that for them just because we have those great relationships. I also did the same with our state officials as well when I first came on, just to try to build those relationships. We're now able to text and call at will whenever we need to and talk on a regular basis. So I was fortunate enough, as I said, to come into that sort of relationship that had already been built, but just kind of establish my own relationships with them and just kind of continue what we have.
All right, Lindsay.
Good morning, Bradley. Thanks for the opportunity today. Without repeating too much of what Laura has said, with just, one-on-one calls, meetings, conversations with folks. So in a county of about 30,000 people, we have 9 municipalities. And so therefore we have 10 total mayors, including the county mayor. And we do mayor roundtable meetings. We try to get them together about once a quarter. Usually they're in the evening, and each one will host. So we'll go to their community, and really I bring some updates about what's happening in the community, but more or less just open the floor for them to talk about what's going on, more or less their struggles, because they're generally all in the same boat, water, wastewater issues, whatever it might be. So really just, what chambers do, connecting people, giving them the opportunity to meet each other. A lot of the mayors are part-time, so they're working during the day. And then maybe they have a clerk or a city manager or somebody that runs full-time for them. So we try to invite those folks or their public works director, whoever they might have. We don't just limit it to mayors unless the mayors request for it to be somewhat confidential, but for the most part, just getting those folks together in a small community makes a big difference. And then that opens up the door for better relationships from us when we do actually need to call and ask specifically for some power in numbers. When we say contact your state representative, because we're represented by 2 different state reps in our county, or having 9 or 10 extra people making that phone call helps us out. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to take up too much of the time on that question.
Helpful, thank you. Justin and Chattanooga, go to you.
Having me, I'm glad to be here today. Everything that's been said is a great starting place. We're unique in that we have our economic development through the city and the county. We sort of run. So we have a unique layer there, dealing with our local, both the county and the city. I think one of the things that we really take a lot of pride on is being a resource for our member, or for the delegation and the city council and the county commission and the mayors. In a lot of regards, we've done several economic surveys of our members, of over 2,000 businesses in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, and we've been able to share that information with those folks. Again, giving them a platform to meet with our members, I think, is really important. We've done virtual chamber chats with the city and county commission presidents, with our local delegation, on various things throughout the year to make sure that there is an interface between not only the delegation and the chamber, but also our members and the elected officials. I think that's one of the things that we try to do to provide that value for our members.
Right, thank you. Kel and Williamson.
Hey, thanks, Bradley. I can't speak highly enough of the value of attending public meetings. It's, onefold, it's a guaranteed time at which your public officials are going to be gathering and be meeting in a set spot. But on top of that, it's really just so important that you're showing that you're invested in their work within the community, just like how you want them to be invested in the work you're engaging in within the community. Another front that we're always very sure about is really keeping our local officials updated and informed about economic development efforts. Economic development work as it is can be confusing and nebulous in and as it is. And we're always on a quarterly basis circulating information about our ongoing efforts and programming. And on top of that, we brief them pretty regularly, which also a quick plug, so many, here involved with TEDC and TCCE are very aware of the value that TVA has. They have an excellent economic development 101 program, which they send their regional folks out to brief local officials on the mechanics and processes behind economic development. But education on that front, I've always found to be so invaluable.
Okay. Well, and Kel, maybe we stick with you and we'll go back through, but how do you all decide? I know y'all talked about whenever you talk to your local officials, but how do you decide what issues that you're, that you're going to get engaged in? And I would ask too, what is the usually the most frequent issue that you do talk to kind of your local elected officials about?
Absolutely. Justin touched on it, surveying, which is so often a bread and butter concept for local chamber and economic development organizations. But surveying, particularly now during COVID, I mean, we've been every few months just trying to get a pulse on what the situation looks like and what we're really dealing with on the ground. But surveying, we have a set group of volunteers, our advocacy committee, through which we really survey and try to get a read on what we're dealing with locally. And then on top of that, our board of directors really puts that stamp of approval on it. But surveying is, I mean, the most important and basic way that we always approach on that front. The issues that we always come back to, education is first and foremost, and that's not unusual for any local chamber of commerce or anything. But for us in Williamson County, we know that our school system is our greatest economic asset. So it is the primary prism through which we operate, period. And that's our primary issue that we always end up coming back to.
Justin?
Very similar to what Kel said. One of the things that we started doing when Christy Gillenwater took over is doing a chamber-wide survey of all of our members. I think one of the important parts of that is just to keep to be able to hear from every member of our chamber, at least give them the opportunity to weigh in. Helps cut through some of the groupthink that can happen on a policy committee or even a board of directors. And that provides us some unique insights as well, from the smaller mom and pop shops all the way through to our larger members. Then those go through the process. We compare those results to what we've done in previous years, take it to the policy committee. Generally, you kind of know ahead of a legislative session kind of what the sticky issues may be. So that may sort of help cover a question or two, which I think is important. So you're not sort of blindsided on that sticky issue that's going to come up that may put you in a spot with your delegation or whatever. But having those conversations early with your policy committee and your board, I think, are important. For us, it's economic development, it's talent. Talent is so critical, and Kel hit on education being a big part of that. How do we grow the talent that we need? And then how are we able to recruit the talent that we need that we can't grow ourselves? I think are the biggest things that we really focus on. And then obviously broadband infrastructure, those sorts of things are really kind of what we're focused on in Chattanooga.
For us, a big issue we've been dealing with is Interstate 69 being under construction for the last several years, start, stop. So what we decided to do as the board of directors is partner with the City of Union City and Discovery Park of America. And we hired a lobbying firm, Butler Snow, about, I guess, 4 years ago to be our part-time lobbyist. So we don't have anybody on staff doing the advocacy specifically. So for us in a small chamber, it's been a very wise spend of money. We did, like I said, hire them originally for us lobby for that, and that's turned out to be very fruitful because it's been under construction since consistently. We've had a lot of, with Discovery Park of America being built 5 years ago, tourism has come up to the top of the list for us. And there's been various bills that have come across and legislation that, we'll pick up the phone and call our lobbying firm and say, hey, what does this look like? And what should we communicate back to our local elected officials and our state representatives and things like that? So that's been very informative and helpful for us, because I don't always know how to interpret what those bills are that are being presented and what they could or could not look like and what the reality is of the possibility of them passing. So Butler Snow has been a huge asset for us, because basically it's like having representation in Nashville full-time at a part-time level. We've called them for transportation, other than I-69, we've had rail issues, things like that. But going back to what the other two have said, you know, workforce, which trickles down into education. It's all connected. So for us, workforce, tourism, infrastructure, definitely at the top of the list, and things that get discussed from the top down and back up.
Laura?
So we have kind of a unique setup with our chamber. Is we've got a government relations or a legislative affairs council that kind of guides and directs us. So our board has allowed this council to be able to make decisions and take position on legislation. And so we meet every week during legislative session. This year, obviously, would have to be virtual with that, but we have a large committee, and these specific members are representing different factors or different sections of our chamber members. So anywhere from small business to large business, taxes, environment, education. They all represent these different areas or sectors within our chamber members. And so we review all the bills that are being filed, and they look specifically for their areas to bring forth any legislation that we may need to take a look at, things that we might need to take position on. This year we have expanded, and we're collaborating with the Johnson City Chamber and Greene County Partnership on that. So our legislative delegation has grown. So each week when we meet, we have up to 9 legislators on our call each week. So we're able to tell them specific bills that we're taking position on, things that are concerning to us, but we also get an update from them as well as to what they may be working on in their committees, or things that hot button issues, as we talk about all the time, the things that we might need to be made aware of. Some of the issues are kind of on the front and forward. Every year we kind of look at some similar issues, but as the rest have always said, workforce development, talent, that is huge for us. Broadband has become another one. Education is always on the front lines of anything that we do. And so we have similar issues, I think, across the state that we all kind of look at that are kind of our top issues.
Okay, very good. I do want to ask you all, this is a little bit different question, and I think it's all happened to us, but for those of us that, you know, being in local chamber, economic development, you're going to have people that disagree with you. And I think we even see it more frequently now. You know, people are just fundamentally opposed to maybe economic development. I think whenever you all have someone like that that's really difficult, or maybe they've gotten upset with you, kind of how do you all work to maybe repair those issues or educate people about things in your community? And Laura, we'll kind of stay with you, maybe go back through.
So, you know, there have been issues that maybe we all don't agree on at times. And so we just, number one, have to educate ourselves first and foremost. We have those relationships with our legislators that we can, there was a question last week on something that came up, and I literally just picked up the phone and called our state senator, and I said, listen, I need you to kind of educate me on this, and what are you doing on this? What does this look like? So kind of talk through with him. And then we, as has said before, we provide information. We're kind of that liaison, that conduit between the two. And so we get that information out to those who may not understand certain positions that are taken on certain things. But also we can have informative sessions as well, where we have, you know, different events throughout the year, just to try to educate our members on certain things. We have events that happen before legislation starts. We have them during legislation. We have them at the end as a wrap up. So that way you're educating your members as to maybe certain positions that your legislators took on certain things. And so I think, you know, just having those relations to be able to get that information out to your members is vital. It's so important in the role that we play in the government relations world.
I guess I go back to Chamber 101. The first thing I learned is always keep it volunteer between you and the issue. So I generally don't stick myself out and try to fight a battle if something like that comes up. I'll, you know, go to the board, ask the board, look for information from those that are employing me first and foremost, and then work from there, deciding how to handle it, and always just look for consensus and common ground. And as Laura said, you know, just educate yourself, educate other people. find the common ground and try to get that ship moving in that direction first. And then, once you find common ground and get that consensus, it's much easier to get over the differences rather than focusing on your differences on the front end. Where do we agree? Start there, move forward. And, we found that, it's really hard sometimes to get people to attend a legislative breakfast or something like that we try to have toward the end of the legislative session. So being a big agriculture area, we partnered with our Farm Bureau group, and that was a real winner for us in getting, obviously we're the top corn producing county in the state, probably second in soybeans. And so agriculture is a big piece of it. And once we started partnering with Farm Bureau to host legislative sessions, forums, whatever it is, then we our attendance and reached a different group of people that aren't necessarily involved in the chamber, and they will never be, and that's okay. But as long as they know who we are and know that they can call us, that's really, at the end of the day, that's what we want to be, is that resource for everybody. So that's where we've been able to bridge a gap that we found in the past as well. And just to know that even for agriculture, we may be recruiting manufacturing, but we're still a champion for them as well.
Yeah, I think when there are just going to be some elected officials that don't agree with you, right? And I think some of the lessons that the Chattanooga Chamber has learned and that I've learned in my career is, A, be upfront about it. Don't blindside anybody. If you come out, and you have a disagreement with an elected official, make sure you've had a conversation behind closed doors about it first. Don't go to a county commission meeting and throw down on an elected official. I don't think that ever ends well. And I think sometimes you just have to recognize that you're not going to agree on everything, and just understand that, even though we don't agree on this, there are going to be things that we're going to be able to work together on, and finding where those common grounds are, and just sort of agree to disagree on certain things and do it in an agreeable way, and not burn bridges if you can help it. And, just sort of take those lumps as they come. But I've always found that if you are upfront and you know what you're talking about, you have your facts right, and you can articulate it in a way, there's only so much you can do. So really finding that sort of middle ground of being able to hold your own while sort of acknowledging that there may be some things that you don't agree with, and finding out other ways to sort of work together, I think is one of the things that has been very helpful in those situations for us.
Very good. Kel?
I'm going to do the classic, everything Justin just said, I agree. But, it's so funny that you will find moments where just because you disagree with that official in this instance, there may be a moment where they are clearly on your side and in a big way. So always be careful to note that there may be another time where this person's coming through for you in a big way. Education and really keeping people in the loop is just super important. In addition to that transparency that Justin also touched on. One other, approach that I always find to be effective in a pinch, bringing in a respected business leader who can really speak and bring clarity to the room goes a long way and speaks differently than your organization ever could. And I always find that just to be a good approach.
Okay, really good. One last thing I'm curious too, you all, in terms of communication, we'll kind of go back through everybody. Do you use, Facebook, social media, or do y'all still use e-newsletters, or what do you all think kind of is the most effective, podcast? Kel?
So we circulate a monthly e-newsletter, just our policy kind of brief of, or, local on up through state, of what's going on, what's pertinent to our local business community and the like. In addition to that, we do monthly programming like a lot of local chambers do. During legislative session, it's with our state delegation. In the months in between, it's with local officials, our mayors and the like. Those are the channels that we most plug on when it comes to the policy with our membership.
We're in a very similar boat. We do sort of a news aggregated policy update for our members. We're going to start a sort of weekly recap of the legislative session this year that's a little bit more than just, you know, a Microsoft Outlook email. And then we'll do a quarterly elected official only email that sort of highlights what's going on in economic development and talent and membership. What are kind of the big things that the organization's working on for those elected officials as well. And then we do the chamber chat kind of things and the bigger events. We'll usually do a day on the Hill in Nashville. Obviously, that's different this year with the pandemic and the rules. So we'll do those virtually this year. And then we're looking at sort of expanding into DC a little bit, doing a virtual DC event later in the year as well. So those are just sort of the typical ways that we go about articulating kind of what we're doing and what we're focused on.
All right. Lindsay, Laura?
We do a weekly email of upcoming events, and then we do a monthly newsletter. Bradley, we use a lot of the things that the Tennessee Chamber puts out. We just straight up steal it and copy and paste into our newsletter. So we appreciate having that information nicely packaged up for us. We do Facebook is still pretty big for us for pushing out information because it reaches more than just our membership and the typical folks. One-on-one calls, we still call our chamber members once or twice a year, just saying, hey, how are you doing? Can we do anything? What's keeping you up at night? To pull the information in and then decide, you know, kind of what we do with that and move forward. Face-to-face visits, surveys that were mentioned earlier. So we do a lot of different methods to pull it in, but as far as the publishing it out, generally it's still email. And then we do once a year an annual impact report that summarizes, you know, visits, calls, legislative things like that. So generally probably your typical stuff. I don't know that there's anything just out of the box that we've tried, because it seems that what's been working is still working.
I'm going to echo everything that everybody said. We do a weekly newsletter. We also do a weekly video, and we send it out on all of our social media platforms. So anything that we have coming up, anything that we need to discuss with our chamber members goes into that weekly video, that spotlight that we do, chamber spotlight, each week. We also, through the various events that we have throughout the year, we'll keep our members updated on things that we're doing, things that we're looking at. When we could travel, we traveled a lot more. So we did a lot more visits to Nashville. And we were starting before COVID hit, expand, like it was said before, expand up into Washington, DC area as well, to allow our chamber members to be able to go up for days on the Hill that we were going to coordinate there. We're hoping to get back there again once everything settles down. But, you know, as Lindsay said before, what we kind of have works, and that's what we keep going with. But just trying to expand out any way that we can, just to keep our members updated and informed.
All right, that brings us to 11 o'clock. So I think we're wrapping it up. Thanks so much for Bradley's information, and for Laura, Kel, and Lindsay. We really appreciate that. As Carolyn put in the chat box, those slides we can share as well as a recording that we can send out as well from today. But we appreciate you all hopping on today. It's good to see your faces, and stay safe out there, and we appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.